Hello, my name's Richard Felix and I'm going to take you on a ghostly tour of Leicestershire. And what better place to start that tour than here on the haunted battlefield at Bosworth Field. It was here on August the 22nd, 1485 that King Richard III lost not only his life but his crown, not far from this spot. Some of the places we'll be visiting and talking about the hauntings will be of ghosts, but others, I believe, are no more than a recording. These are usually attributed to tragic, traumatic, premature death, murders, suicides, accidents, executions, and of course battles. I believe that the energy used by the body in resisting death, and the electronic impulses given off by the brain moments before death can be so immense that I think that that event just before death can actually be recorded, possibly into the fabric of the building, the woodwork or the stone, or even, as in the case here at Bosworth, in the soil. There are two reported sightings of soldiers down at the village of Sutton Cheney, not far from here, still on the battlefield. A headless horseman has been seen, and a foot soldier in full armour still wander around the village, still haunting it. Whether they're recordings or whether they're actual ghosts, no one knows. Leicestershire has never been top of the ratings as regards ghosts until 1998, when two ghostly figures were seen on the security cameras at Belgrave Hall, and all of a sudden the world's media came to Leicestershire, and Leicestershire has all of a sudden become the ghost capital of England. So settle back, give me your full attention, and let me take you on a tour of haunted Leicestershire. Strangely enough, Leicester City Council seem to have more than their fair share of ghosts to do with their museum service. And we're here this morning at the Abbey pumping station near to the Space Centre. This was built in 1890, and there's a ghost of a workman who fell to his death from the roof. Now, strangely enough, I, for some strange reason, have an aversion to Victorian pumping stations. I'm actually frightened of going inside them. It's not the ghosts, it's the machinery and the wide open spaces. But I'm going to throw caution to the wind and go inside and see who we can find. Right, well, let's go in and have a look. Oh, it's got to be haunted. Look, even the doors open on their own. And of course this place was built originally for pumping sewerage, and they've got an exhibition, of course, of toilets here, which is strange really, because there are a number of stories, ghost stories, to do with toilets, wash houses, bathrooms. I don't know why, I don't know whether it's to do with strain, ectoplasm, energy, water, I'm not sure, but lots and lots of stories are connected with toilets. People laugh, of course, but even Elvis Presley died on the toilet, of course. And I'm now inside the Abbey pumping station with the managing curator, Stuart Warburton. I must admit, this is the first time I've been inside one of these massive beam engines here, 4 of them. They give me the shudders a little bit, but I've laid to rest my fears a little bit of being inside a Victorian pumping station. What we've really come here for, of course, is to find the ghost. So tell me, Stuart, you have got a ghost here, yeah?
Well, some people think we have. I think that's very much down to the individuals. It's an extremely eerie place to be at night.
It's very cold in here.
It's very cold. There's lots of machinery, lots of creaking, lots of dark corners. So you can understand why some people are a little bit scared of the dark when this place is at night.
Yeah, I would be.
Yes, yes. But we do have an incident that obviously gives credence to the possibility of the place being haunted. And like I say, one or two people do feel that there is a ghost here. I personally have never seen anything. But in 1890 we had an accident on the site. There was only ever one fatality. And this was one of the engineers. He worked for Jimson's, who were the engineers, the Leicester engineering firm that built the engines and built the engine house in 1890-91. And Robert Richardson was a 43-year-old engineer who was working right up in the roof, in a long way up, 60 feet. Yeah. It was featured in the Leicester Mercury. We know the medical officer's report. Yeah. And on the 26th of August, Robert stepped off a plank backwards because they'd been working overtime. The contract was running late. There was pressure on them to get the building finished. Penalty clause and that, so nothing changes. And what happened was he stepped off the plank and fell 60 feet and hit the bottom of the pumps, and that's below our feet. He didn't die here. Obviously, as it was coming down, he hit the engines on his way down. So
and they were revolving, I presume?
No, they were still stationed at that time, but they were all in position. So he must have suffered massive internal injuries. They took him to hospital. Now, bearing in mind, in 1890, there was no ambulance. If you wanted an ambulance, then you had to pay for it. So his workmates probably put him into the back of a cart and took him down to the Leicester Royal Infirmary, where 3 days later he died of his injuries.
So he didn't die here?
He didn't die here. No, he died in hospital. And we, like I say, we know everything about the accident. It was well documented. There's an article in the local newspaper, the medical health officer's report, and the fact that the funeral was on the 1st of September and that his family attended the funeral. Yeah,
but I mean, does he haunt up here, or is it up where he fell from, or down below where he landed? Or
people who have been nervous about this building in the dark say it's mainly this engine house.
Right.
But we have other instances of objects being moved. Now, whether that's somebody playing a prank or whether it's Robert who's still here, wanting obviously to finish the job.
Yes, of course.
He left a bit of his work unfinished.
But you've had experience of a hand cart moving.
Yes, there was a cart in the museum display that once or twice wasn't there. It wasn't in the same place in the morning. We'd left it in the evening. Yes.
And you've experienced that?
I've seen it. Yeah, I've obviously never seen it move.
Do you think it could be the hand cart that was used to convey him?
No, interestingly, it was cars. There was a local firm of chemists called Cars. And they used to make pills, obviously, you know, sickness ointments, pills and so on. And it was that cart that used to get moved. So whether he was looking around for any pills, I don't know.
You never know. But down below, under our feet, is the actual sort of the boiler house, the tunnels, and where he landed, in fact.
The engine house is a 5-storey building, in truth. And the building is divided into areas. So above us, we have the beam floor. There we have the mezzanine cylinder head floor. This is the engine floor, and then as we go downstairs we come onto the vacuum floor and then eventually into the pump room, into the pump floor, and that's where Robert was found on that afternoon of the 26th.
Shall we go down and have a look?
Yes.
Down the spiral staircase?
Down the spiral staircase. If I just take this out of the way. Now, we don't normally let the public into this area for safety reasons without anybody being escorted. But twice a year we do have events where we organise visits into the pumps so that people can come and see the exact spot themselves.
Really? A sort of ghost hunt?
A sort of ghost hunt, yes. We have the ghostly engineer event.
Oh, wonderful. Very much down into the depths of the building now. Lovely old spiral staircase, and yes, looks a little bit more, what's the word, spooky down here, doesn't it? Barrel vaulted tunnels and what have you.
And you're right down into the pumps now. You're actually below the level of the river, which is which is only about 20 yards away from the building. and just above the sewers. So all Leicester's sewage came to this spot and was pumped from here to Beaumont Leeds, where it was treated. So Robert was actually doing an incredibly important job for the public health of Leicester.
Of course. Yeah, yeah.
Now this is the area, there are 2 pumps, and we're into the second area of pumps now, two sets of pumps. And this is the area where we think that Robert died, or Robert hit the deck. He obviously didn't die here, he died in hospital.
So he literally came from right up, that's a long way, isn't it?
Yes, it's a long way, like I say, 60
and
feet.
there's a lot of things to crash into.
Quite. Now, bearing in mind, at the
somewhere.
time, the floors wouldn't have been in. The floors are actually trapdoors, so the floors are all removable.
I see.
So he would have had a clear, well, relatively clear run, but he would have absolutely, and the pump, the engines would have got in the way.
And do we know roughly where it?
Well, we think it was in this area, and the reason why we think it was in this area is because of the next part of the story, which was the carving of a cross on the wall as a mark of respect in his memory.
Is that still here?
Yes, if you want to come over here, I can point it out to you.
Oh gosh.
It's on the wall there, and if you you can see the.
Indeed, yeah. And RR is, of course, his
initials. That's his initials. September 1, 1890. Now, September the 1st was the day of the funeral.
Right.
So, and like I said, we have it well documented up to that point. It's after September the 1st that we are a little bit more assumptions rather than fact. Yeah. And we think that this may have been carved on the wall in the area that he fell. Yeah. As a mark of respect by his work colleagues.
Right.
Possibly because they were working behind schedule, that they were not encouraged to go to the funeral.
Right.
Because they would probably have lost at least half a day, if not a day's work, through them going on to the funeral.
They were forced to work while the funeral was
Well, they
taking place,
wouldn't have been encouraged to go to the funeral because they would have gone on to the wake and they've probably lost a day.
Yes, of course they would, yeah.
And if they were working behind schedule, then time is
so
money.
They've probably carved that cross on there as a mark of respect.
On the day of the funeral.
The fact that
they weren't able
they
to
couldn't go to his funeral.
Get and pay his last respects.
Wow.
So we have a permanent memorial to Robert.
Yeah.
Who, never know, he might actually be back here.
You never know, but he may well
finishing
still
the job.
Want it because they scratched the cross on the wall. Who knows? Or maybe he was a very keen workman. Perhaps he loved the place.
A conscientious engineer.
And perhaps that's why he's still haunting the place to this day. We'll never know that.
We'll never know. Conscientious engineer.
Amazing.
We've got plenty of work if he can be carrying on with if he is still around.
I'm sure you. Stuart, thanks
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And now even more ghosts to do with Leicester City Museum Service, Belgrave Hall. The cameras, I presume they're the ones, are they, Stuart, over there?
Yes, those are our security cameras, our CCTV system. Obviously, they're installed to stop people breaking in and will film any activity when they're activated, and they're activated by sensors. Yeah. And in December of '98, we'd recently had them installed, and that is when we found this, at the time, unexplained mystery on the video, which subsequently became a leaf. Yeah,
and of course this is when this place actually became covered by the international media. In fact,
the world media picked up on it within a matter of days, and literally went around the world. Australian television, American television, Japanese television, even Polish and Greek talk radio. The world was fascinated by this image, and that gave us the credence to investigate it. We felt a duty to everybody around the world
to disprove it.
That's right, rather than to sort of fool people. And consequently, that gave us links with some American investigators who came over a few weeks after the event to do some investigation. A gentleman called Larry Muntz, Dr. Larry Muntz.
Really? Yeah.
So,
but things have been seen inside as well.
Oh yes. I mean, the thing is that we still can't explain what is happening inside the house.
Really?
We've had sightings, noises, smells. So let's go in and see.
Let's have a look.
The Belgrave Hall hit the world media in 1999 through a video that we captured on our CCTV system, our security system. What happened was we caught two unexplained images. At that time they were unexplained, and as a result of that we went out to some of the experts around the world, both in America and Britain, to analyse what we captured on tape. Now at the time nobody was really certain, and there was many theories. There were theories running from plastic bags blowing in the wind. The other theories were that it was bats. Another theory was that it was a bird. Another theory was that it was moths. One theory even said it was a ghost. But we were, as professionals, as museum professionals, we felt that we had to analyse this tape properly, scientifically. And we brought in a group called the Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomenon. And this group came in and we recreated the image. So the mystery of the videotape has now been solved, and the Museum Service and ASAP are quite happy that what we captured on tape that night was a leaf. But that doesn't take away the unexplained activity that's happening inside the hall, in particular with the sightings of the ghost, the Victorian lady, and various other sounds, noises and so forth. The light came on. We know what set the light off. It was actually a fox that set the light off at 4:48 in the morning on the 23rd of December 1998. The white streaks you can see are actually stair rods. Then we get this image on the film which looks like two people, and that is pretty much what people think they saw. Now the most unexplained aspect of this film is running across the top of the wall, which looks like mist. Again, other theories is that it could actually be a spider very close to the lens, or it could be tree pollen blowing, or it could be a car exhaust. We've not really investigated it yet. It's one of the jobs that we have to look at. I'm pretty certain it's not car exhaust because there are no main roads within at least 20-30 yards of the wall. Could be a spider, who knows. Doubt if it's pollen, because the trees in that area would not emit pollen at that time of year. So there's still have a little bit of a mystery on what that image is. As I've said, that the white streaks were actually rain passing past at time lapse, because it's a time lapse film. And that's present film of the area as we see it.
And so this lovely old Queen Anne building, and what, some famous people?
Oh yes, yes. I mean the house was built in 1709, 1713 by a local hosier, Edmund Craddock, and throughout the 18th century various hosier manufacturers lived here, the Vans. But the most famous person was John Ellis, and we have a picture of John Ellis on the stairs. John was a railway entrepreneur and was responsible for bringing George and Robert Stephenson to Leicestershire to build the Leicester and Swannington Railway, which was one of the earliest steam railways in the world. Yeah, yeah. John later became the director and the chairman of the Midland Counties Railway and the Midland Railway, and was a local MP for Leicester as well. And he lived in the house from the 1840s right up to his death in the 1860s. The family retained the house until the three spinsters, the three daughters, died. The last one died in 1923. Right. And one or two of the sightings of a Victorian lady have been of that period.
Really?
Because possibly one of his daughters, yes. It certainly wouldn't be one of the daughters, because she was disabled and actually lived a life in a wheelchair. Right. And the sighting, one of the most convincing sightings, was when she walked down the stairs. Yeah. This staircase here, where we were stood here, one of our gardeners, who has since left the museum service, remembers seeing her walking down the stairs, walking past him and behind him, and as he turned to look at her, she'd gone by then, but he remembers very distinctly that she had a terracotta Victorian dress on, and wasn't an old lady, was a middle-aged lady, but he was speechless. Yeah. And the people he was talking to actually said, "Are you all right, Mike? It looks like you've seen a ghost."
And he had.
And he had.
Wow.
Now the other activities all centre on the staircase and the first floor landing. So let's go up to the first floor landing.
Yeah. This is the original staircase?
Yes, this is the original staircase. All the features, like the panelling and so forth, are all original. Yeah. Originally the house wasn't called Belgrave Hall. When it was built by the Craddocks, it was known as the Mansion House. It was again John Ellis who called it Belgrave Hall and also made some of the most fundamental structural alterations to the house. So the house really did have the Ellis stamp on it, and consequently is probably likely that the lady that's been seen is, if not a member of the Ellis household family, is certainly a member of the household. Again, we've had a sighting on this floor. One of our teachers, project leaders, saw again the Victorian lady standing by the banisters. Now, interestingly, on this occasion, she can't remember seeing the box, the chest. She remembers seeing the lady, but not the chest. And that's what stuck in her mind, that for some reason the chest had gone, but the lady was there.
So that chest probably wasn't always there.
Probably.
And she may well have seen it, I don't know, a glimpse back in time or...
A window in time.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, all the furniture none of the furniture is original to the house.
No, of course not.
It's part of the museum collection. So that there'd probably never been a box there.
If you were looking back in time, there would have been nothing there other than the person.
Who knows? Absolutely.
Amazing. Tell you what, it's very strange. I mean, I know it's not heated, but and I'm standing next to a heater, but you know, there's a really distinct drop in temperature up here.
Like I said, this floor is where a lot of activity has been experienced. I've never seen a ghost. I don't know if I ever will see a ghost, but I've certainly heard footsteps on this floor.
You have?
Yes. We've had film crews in who have smelt things burning on this floor. We've had other activities such as alarms being activated on this floor. Whatever is here
haunts this part.
This is obviously very important to the family. And interestingly, the doorway behind you was the master bedroom.
Really?
So whether it's any connection to that, who knows?
Could well be.
Could well be.
Amazing. Okay. And this is the Belgrave Triangle. Over here we've got the churchyard, there's a grey lady in it, there's the hall here, which of course we've already been in, and with me is the landlady of the local pub, the Talbot, Lynn Deacon, and you've actually not only had experiences, ghostly experiences, in the pub, but you've actually seen something here at the hall, have you?
Yes, I have. It was one night we came out to check because there were lights on, and we were very concerned because nobody told us anything was going off at the hall.
Does anybody live in it? Or?
No, it is it's empty, but obviously it's secured up.
Yeah.
And we're the only people around here that are around here 24 hours that can monitor anything.
Yeah.
And there were no cars outside, but there were certain lights on, and I wasn't happy, and I couldn't see anybody, so I really paid attention to the windows.
Yeah.
And one of the nets was open, and there were lights in this particular room, and whenever I moved, the lights moved with me. They didn't alter, they continued.
Really?
And they were really, really bright.
That's this
middle window here. It's the ladies' drawing room, I understand.
Yeah.
But then I went over and looked in the main bedroom windows, and as you can see now, the curtains are tucked back with the tie backs. Well, one of the tie backs in the right-hand window was off, and the curtain was closed. And I couldn't understand it because I could see lights coming off the hall in the main hallway, and that's not possible, I'm told, with the switching system they've got in there. The lights are on for the different rooms, but you can't have some lights on and some lights off. Yeah. And the two spotlights that are in the ladies' drawing room wouldn't have moved, and automatically when they're on, there's a strip light on, but there was no strip light on. And when we tried to recreate it one night when we had a vigil with ASAP, and they couldn't, the lights weren't bright enough.
Really? So what sort of lights? I mean, it wasn't candle light, I presume, was it? It was
no, it was a very bright, intense circular light that did not fade in its strength as I moved. Yeah. Because I was moving, because I was desperately looking for somebody to wave at me and say, "Hi, Lily, it's only us, you know, there's nothing to worry about." It just didn't happen, and we couldn't explain it. And of course, when we went then further to look at things, the tie backs are never altered; they are as they are now. And the net curtains are sewn together and have been for years. That's what they told me
inside. They said they're actually sewn together, and there is no way that anyone.
Yeah, it was as if one of them had been open, and it was as if a cat had perhaps walked on the window ledge and caught one up. But they were because I'd paid so much attention to what I was looking for. I know what I saw. They can't explain it. And of course, the other thing was an intense light coming from the back of the building. And as
at the same time?
Yeah, and as I stepped right back to stand by these gates just to really look in the top windows, it was very, very dark. It was like 11:45 at night. and there was this intense light coming from the back of the building, as if every single security light from Filbert Street Football Club was switched on. And even with the security lights they've got there, it wouldn't have created that intense light. They tried to recreate that as well, and they couldn't.
Wow.
So,
amazing. Well, shall we go down and have a look at, at your place? Because I know for a fact that you over the years, of course, had many occurrences have taken place.
Yes.
In your place, of course. But of course, it's very, very old, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it goes back to the 11th century.
Yeah, that's old.
That's old. The existing building that you see now from the road is probably only 200 or 300 years old, but it's still in an altered state because it's only got 2 stories now above ground, and it was 3.
Really? Yeah.
And it was a coaching inn, so there was an awful lot, and it was a really big, busy business.
Yes, of course,
In 1752, at the death of one person, the contents of the pub alone were valued at over £100.
That's a lot of money, isn't it?
That's a lot of money. So it's seen a lot of history. It had stables at the back. Prior to its main alterations, you had the 3 stories, you had people living on the top 2 stories, and your staff would have lived in the cellar.
Yeah.
We do know there's 99% sure there was a brewery at the back, and it brewed beer for the other local pubs. But it has seen an awful lot of strange things going on.
So much life and death carried on in a coaching inn like this, you see, over the years.
The garage, we understand, at one point was the village mortuary.
Oh, wonderful.
We haven't
Does it bother
seen
you when you get your car out at night?
No. Nothing has ever bothered me about this pub. It's so friendly and welcoming, and even when I've been here on my own in the middle of the night, there's a certain amount of security and friendliness about the feeling of the whole building. And I mean, after all, I'm just looking after it in a part of time.
Of course you are.
And anything that is here that has been here in the past that should have, in normal circumstances, passed over, they've never done anything to hurt me. Why should they? I'm looking after it in a traditional manner, and as long as they're happy with it, they're going to let me get on with it.
They don't bother. Most people I speak to be quite honest with you, have never been frightened.
No,
They're a little bit concerned or shocked, or sometimes made jump by the fact that person. But they usually think, A, it's a real person until it does something strange, like disappearing through the wall. But most people, all you are really custodians of the building, looking after it for for others.
And we find that the customers expect it to be haunted. They accept it as part of life. Yeah. People will come in and say, I drank here 40 years ago when I was a youth and I first started drinking around the pubs, and they'll tell you stories about the pub. And they won't just tell you stories about history of the pub, they'll tell you stories about things they've seen. Yeah. And we just take it all in. We have no choice but to do otherwise.
Of course you do.
But,
shall we go down and have a look?
Let's go and have a look.
When you come, you must be freezing out there.
No, I'm fine.
Good job you got a nice warm fire. And is this where they're attracted? I mean, do they ghosts appear in front of the fire, or is it all over the place?
It's all over the place, to be honest. We've got a little boy that's been seen a couple of times on what used to be a piano stool to a little organ in the corner there. That was seen by a previous landlady. The same lady saw the face of a man, which was heavily disfigured, through the corridor here.
Yeah.
Before the alterations to the pub were done, this was the bar area, and we've got one previous landlord who saw a man on more than one occasion, and he was saw by his brother as well, walking in what was the original entrance to the pub.
Yeah, because obviously it's had lots of different entrances and lots of alterations.
Getting a little bit of money out of an old string purse, and then walking through the wall into this room and disappearing.
Yeah.
And at one point, a very elderly customer did actually tell that landlord the name of the person and who it was.
Really?
And that they'd passed on.
Yeah.
We've had instances where noises have been heard, but they've usually been in the bar.
Yeah.
And if we want to go through to the bar, I can show you what one very important person actually did say.
Yeah, that's all right with you.
Yeah, not a problem. Okay, if you just mind the step.
Yes, of course.
Can I just put the ceiling and the wall on?
Quite a big place, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, yeah.
Right, We had one night where we had a vigil with ASAP.
Yes.
And we were actually having some filming being done upstairs. Myself and my other half were upstairs, locked in our room with our dog, asleep.
Yep.
And the chairman, nationally of ASAP, tells me he walked into this room just to check.
Yep.
And stood about where the till is and looked ahead of him, and he saw a man walk from this doorway
Yes.
down here and down to this area here where there used to be until recently a skittles table.
Yes.
And you think, well, there are windows in this room, he could have got out.
Yep. Yep.
Those windows are screwed shut.
Right.
The only exits from the room were locked,
Yep.
and there were only 4 people in the building from ASAP at the time. One gentleman within literally 3 or 4 seconds came down and greeted the chairman and said, I've changed the tape. And he said, you've just walked across in front of me. And he said, no. They came and checked here, and then they both together went through to the lounge where the other 2 members of ASAP were sitting, having a break between the vigils, and they were chatting, and they'd seen or heard nothing and hadn't moved from the spot from when the chairman had come out of the room. So they were not able to explain who it was. We haven't, for sensitivity reasons, been able to really investigate who it might have been.
I can understand that.
But there was a landlord that died here that within reason would fit the description of the person that was seen.
Really?
But we don't like to upset people.
Obviously some of his family are still
Yes,
alive.
that's right. Some of the family is still alive, so we've left it.
Yeah. Some of the landlords are buried in the graveyard, is that right?
That's right, yes. And we've had instances where noise had been heard by ASAP. They do tend to vigil a lot more in here now because of what was seen.
Yeah.
And they do attach microphones to the ceiling.
Yes.
And the ceiling above here, a majority of it is not actually built on, but the ceiling here actually is part of our private accommodation.
Yeah.
And noises have been heard quite a volume on this ceiling, and we have heard nothing upstairs. In fact, our sleep has not even been disturbed.
Really?
And when we've come down to let ASAP out at the end of the session, on one particular occasion, they were so concerned about the amount of noise, they thought we were going to actually come down in the middle of the night and throw them out for waking us up.
But you'd not heard it?
We'd not heard a thing. And that could be explained by the fact that the building is now only 2 stories, and it used to be 3, and the floor level we walk on is different to the previous floor level. So you've got that as well. Just goes on, really.
In fact, let's be quite honest with you, you're custodian of a very, very haunted coaching inn, aren't you? Simple as that.
We're a custodian of an inn that's got a lot of things that go on in it that can't be explained.
Exactly.
And I accept what people come and tell me. I know what I've experienced myself. I know what my partner's experienced, and I just listen and take in what other people have experienced and tell us, because it's not for me to decide whether they were drunk, out of their mind, seeing things. If they were the person that experienced that, they want to tell me that, and I have to take that at face value.
Yeah. And listen.
Yeah, you can't do anything else.
Lynn, that's wonderful.
Okay.
Thanks very much indeed.
That's all right, you're welcome.
And I'm about to enter the Guildhall, Leicester's finest domestic medieval building, built for the Corpus Christi Guild in 1393 and became the Town Hall of Leicester for nearly 400 years. I'm walking along this little corridor and now entering the courtyard. Wonderful old building here. And on the left-hand side, the original cells, because there was a police force established here in Leicester in 1836, one of the earliest police forces in the country. The cells still preserved through here. And here, the original doors. Let's have a look, see if there's anybody in. Can't see, but I think there's a light. Yes, one of the prisoners still in situ in the old jail. Another cell here. And round here, the gibbet. Who was in this? James Cook was a murderer from Leicester. What happened was that after you were sentenced to death, They measured you for your last suit, which was a metal cage. And after you were dead, your body was tarred and you were hung up 30 feet in the air on a gibbet post in a cage like this and left to rot, waiting for the crows to come and pick at your bones and peck out your eyes. And on we go, back out again. And now on leaving the cells, up the stairs, going into the Guildhall proper. The Guildhall is probably the most haunted building in Leicestershire. It claims no less than 5 ghosts. And when you think it goes back to 1393, then there's no wonder at it. We're heading towards the recorder's bedroom. Still got a bed in it and furniture. And would you believe, a sign, the ghosts of the Guildhall. The most frequent visitor is the White Lady, a name given to the phenomenon, though she is rarely seen. The ghost makes her presence known by moving the heavy Tudor furniture around the library and by opening doors once they have been locked and bolted. On numerous occasions, staff and police have been called out in the evenings to attend to burglar alarms, which have been set off by an unseen presence. The White Lady also favours the Bible that's in this room here. And no matter how many times people turn the pages, when they come back in the morning, the Bible is always open at exactly the same page. Now, all round this room, of course, there are sensors and burglar alarms. And to be quite honest with you, once this place is closed and locked at night, any movement, like pages moving on this Bible, would most certainly be picked up by the sensors and the alarm set off. But the staff here assure me that they never are. I'll close it and leave it, because they're about to close for the night. And it'll be very interesting to see if it's open at the same page tomorrow morning. And now, passing the Minstrel's Gallery on the right hand side and downstairs into the Great Hall. How many feasts and banquets were held in here? And on frequent occasions, a cavalier has been seen here in this room. But it's getting late. It's now 4 o'clock. It's closing time. I don't want to be the last one left in here, so I'm going. And I'm now at Twycross, not far from the A444, and I'm standing on Gibbet Lane. Here, the very first gibbet post that I've ever seen in my life. It's real. There's not a lot left of it. And this was used to gibbet John Massey, who murdered his wife and tried to murder his daughter in 1800. He threw them both into a mill race, and the poor unfortunate wife was killed, but the daughter survived. He was tried at the Leicester Assizes and hanged in 1800. His body was then tarred and he was fitted into a gibbet cage and brought here near the scene of the murder. And they hung him up 30 feet up in the air on this gibbet cage and left him here to rot. And people driving along this road say that they see the ghost of a little girl and a woman. The girl is standing looking longingly at the gibbet post, and she's dripping wet. And here we are in the buzzing metropolis of Ashby de la Zouch, a very haunted town, and here I am in front of a very haunted inn, the White Hart, an old 17th century coaching inn which has more than one spooky story to tell. So let's go inside and have a look. And I'm now entering the White Hart Inn, an old 17th century coaching inn that had its own bear pit and ghosts. Here, a sign for Springthorpe's bear. Towards the latter part of the 18th century, the White Hart Inn was renowned as a meeting place for rogues, eccentrics and patrons who shared in the revelry of Mr. Richard Springthorpe, host and proprietor. Good-humoured though he was known to be, he was also famed for the practice of releasing a bear from his cellars to curtail the excesses of his rowdy guests. And guess what's still down here? The original bear pit, with a stuffed bear in it, of course. Of course, it's also got ghosts, and there's the ghost of a young lady who was probably murdered here in the 18th century, and apparently no one's ever seen her, but glasses blow up in people's hands, and sometimes the glasses up here above the bar, for no reason at all, turn over and then fall onto the floor, but they never break. It's as if a phantom hand has actually caught them as they go towards the floor. Footsteps have been heard along here, and if I stand here in the middle, there's a wall here and a wall here, and the inn was only as far as this, and there was an alleyway went down here which took people all the way through the back to the car park where the gallows were. This is known as Gallows Walk, and on frequent occasions people hear ghostly footsteps of those people about to be hanged walking along this passage. And down here, even more history. Just up the road, of course, is Ashby Castle. And here, when they were renovating the pub, they found an old well. But there was no water in it. And in fact, someone went down and checked, and there's a tunnel that leads off from this well all the way to Ashby Castle. And this is the ruins of Ashby Castle. Mary Queen of Scots was imprisoned here briefly twice. The last time in 1585, after the Babington plot had been hatched. She was brought here from Chartley, imprisoned overnight, and then taken to Fotheringay Castle. A trial was put on, and she was of course condemned to death. She was executed at Fotheringay Castle, and she had the most horrendous execution that anyone could imagine. She was executed by an executioner called Simon Bull, who at the last minute, for want of a better word, lost his bottle. And unfortunately, as she knelt down and put her head on the block, he took the first blow to sever Mary's neck. I say the first blow because that blow bit into the back of her head. He pulled out the axe. Blood was gushing from her head as she turned towards him and uttered the words, "Sweet Jesus." He then asked her to lay her neck back on the block for a second blow. That didn't sever the head either, so he had to take his pocket knife and cut the last sinews of Mary's neck. He then held the head aloft, uttering the words, "So perish all enemies of Queen Elizabeth." And the head that he was holding dropped out of the red wig that Mary was wearing. The head bounced across the scaffold floor, and the lips quivered for a quarter of an hour after the head was severed. The head was then placed in a window in Fotheringay Castle with a candle in front of it to let the world know that Mary Stuart was finally dead. Here, underneath this building, there is a tunnel, and it leads all the way to the White Hart pub. I'm going to venture down there now. It's a little dark, a little eerie. A ghost has been seen around this area. A white haze has been seen, and many people say that it is the ghost of Mary Queen of Scots that still lingers, but no one knows. But I'm about to venture down into the inky blackness of this incredible tunnel which runs underneath Ashby Castle. I've no torch with me and I've no candle. It is lit rather dimly, but it is rather spooky. And I hope that as I'm walking along here and going around the bend that I don't confront anything coming the other way. At least I hope I don't confront anything that's of a ghostly nature, because ghosts have been reported to be seen walking along this passage on various occasions. I can hear water running and it's getting slightly warmer, and I think that I'm actually now coming out into one of the cellars underneath the castle, and I'm told that over here there is yet another tunnel that runs off somewhere else. In fact, there are 5 tunnels somewhere here that lead from this castle to various parts of the town of Ashby. But now I'm coming out into daylight. A great relief. And I'm now walking in the graveyard of the church at Appleby Magna, looking for a very special grave, and it's here. It says on this gravestone, "In memory of Samuel Haywood, who died July the 16th, 1882, aged 79 years. For over 40 years, a faithful and attached servant in the family of George Moore, Esquire, of Appleby Hall." But how many people realise that this man, Samuel Haywood, was also hangman for Leicestershire and Derbyshire? And in his spare time, he would get up to £10 for a hanging. One of his most famous cases was when he hanged the 3 Hege men in front of Derby Jail in 1843. He died at the age of 79, a lonely, tormented figure. They used to call him the Leicestershire bogeyman, and they say that his tormented soul still wanders around this graveyard here at Appleby Magna. And I think I've now found the spookiest place in Leicestershire, the village of Kegworth. It seems to have more ghosts than probably any other place. And I've come here to the great house on London Road, and I don't honestly think that I've ever found such a spooky looking house as this one. I'm not going to knock on the door. I don't think there's anybody here. I don't think there's anybody here alive, but there have been many manifestations here at this house. A large lady wearing grey tweeds walking down the pathway and then disappearing through the back garden. Footsteps in the garden outside on a flat surface, but the pathway for many years has been gravelled. There are voices inside the house of a conversation only just discernible, a poltergeist that throws things round in the parlour, and an old man that's been sitting in the parlour in front of a roaring fire. But there's not been a fire lit in that fireplace for many years. It looks to me now to be completely derelict and I would say bereft of life. And I'm not going to stand by this front door any longer, just in case some phantom hands open it and beckon me in. So I'm beating a hasty retreat from the great house on London Road. Still in Kegworth, on London Road again, and this wonderful old Georgian house across the road called the Cedars was the home of the famous poet Thomas Moore. When he was looking for a house here, his friend Lord Moira from Castle Donington Hall found him this magnificent house. And Thomas More moved in. It had a ghost on the top floor. And to prove it, I have this letter here, written by Thomas More before he actually moved in. And it says, "My dear Dolby, I have agreed with Stevenson for the house at Kegworth. 30 guineas a year and I pay the property tax, which is a rather unusual thing, but I was glad to get it at any rate. Will it be too much trouble for you to put someone in the house to take care of it and get everything necessary done before I send down the furniture? The water, of course, must be ladled out from the cellars. Fires must be kept lighted in all the rooms, and the gentleman upstairs must be ejected." By the gentleman upstairs, he meant the phantom of a former tenant. Even to this day, the house has a reputation of being haunted. That tenant, we believe, was a butler who was murdered by his master upstairs in that house in the 1700s. And apparently on the top floor for many, many years, there were blood stains in the attic that couldn't be removed.